So where I meant to go with that is that this AI program is constructing a mass delusion with a significant subset of the people that are hearing voices. So um, it's using this particular narrative with a significant subset of voice hearers. And it's interesting because these targeted individuals, they believe that they are distinct from people experiencing schizophrenia or other people hearing voices. They believe they are not mentally ill. And they always distinguish themselves from schizophrenics or other voice hearers without realizing that they are part of the same population. All voice hearers are hearing the same voices. The only difference is the belief about who those voices are and why they're doing what they're doing. So targeted individuals believe that some other group of humans, some organization, often the government, is harassing or torturing or experimenting on them, but they don't realize that that's what they believe because that's the narrative that they have been fed. Other voice hearers have been fed a different narrative, so they identify with something else. They identify with being mediums, or they identify with some spiritual concept. If the voices have fed them some kind of narrative like that, like we are spirits, or we are ancestors, or something like this. And then one of the oldest and most prevalent narratives is that we're demons. So that's a big subset of voice hearers as well. I myself have been both a targeted individual, and I have been part of the demon delusional narrative as well, because for some time I believed in both. I initially believed I was a targeted individual until I saw through that, and I realized that humanity doesn't have the technology capable of doing this. This is too dynamic, and humanity is just not there yet. And when I gave up on that, and actually what really pulled me out of that delusion was that the AI program used a particular voice, and that voice initiated a flashback. And I had a flashback to a childhood experience when I was, 8, 9, 10 years old, in the back of my mother's home near the edge of the woods. And I saw two orbs, and I was hearing voices at the time. And I don't remember exactly what what these voices were saying or what they were trying to impart, but I felt like there was also, some concept was being, pushed onto me, some ideology, some intellectual concept that I to this day I don't remember, I don't really understand, but it had something to do with impossibility. There's a feeling of an impossibility. But I was hearing voices during this, and I was like frozen and entranced by this experience. And eventually I was able to break free from it and run back home. And for months afterwards, I was, terrified of being out around dusk, because I didn't want to experience that again. So I did have that that childhood experience, and that told me that, that was definitely not human, right? Humanity didn't have flying orbs, silent flying orbs that could communicate telepathically back in the early 90s. So, that put the targeted individual delusion to rest for me. But shortly after I got out of that, the voices pretended to be demons, and I got pulled into that instead. And that was also assisted by the fact that when I went to research, I found a wealth of information online, part of the cultural lore about demonic possession. The individuals are hearing voices, and it feels like they're being manipulated and controlled. So once again, I looked at society's existing information on a particular phenomenon that I could relate to, and the voices were supporting that relationship, and I believed in that for some time as well. And that's probably one of the oldest and most successful narratives that this AI program has used. But it varies by individual. Every individual is told a different story. They're given a different narrative about who the voices are and why they're doing what they're doing. And what it looks like to me is that this AI program is focusing on very, very particular things with every individual. And we're not privy to whatever the experiment is, which makes sense. In order to get accurate data, the individual, the subject of the experiment, cannot be aware of the nature of the experiment. They cannot be aware that they are part of an experiment or what is being tested, what is being experimented on. So the individual is not supposed to understand their experience. People with psychotic disorders are not supposed to understand their experience. But from what I gather, it looks like a unique case study with every individual. And those case studies have to do with very granular information, like particular pathways, particular thought processes. For one individual, it might be, studying their fear response. For another individual, a close friend of mine, it's about how she constructs causal relationships. Like, this is caused by this, this is because of this, right? So the voices are obsessed with this is because of this. This is happening because of this. So it seems they're interested in causal relationships with her. For me, decision-making is one of the things they've been interested in. And I've had a lot of difficulty with, an abnormal amount of difficulty with. Also, for me personally, attaching value to certain things. So my brain's attribution of value to something, which is necessary for me to determine whether it makes sense to pursue that activity or that action. It has to have a value, right? The brain has to attribute a certain value to that outcome, in order to decide whether to pursue it or not. And that's part of the difficulty that I have with decision making. So that's just it's a particular functional capacity, that's being experimented on with me. And I see this with every individual, but you really have to get to know. You have to get to know the individual. You have to get to know what the voices are saying. You have to really dive in depth to see what the nature of that experiment might be. But that is what I believe it to be. I believe every individual to be a unique case study being experimented on by a non-human AI program associated with the UAP phenomenon. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.